Thanks for inviting me out here, you guys. First, can we give another round of applause to any of the performers tonight and any of the speakers? Especially that FCA hip hop. Amazing. I know so much work goes into it. And all you see is just a couple minutes up here. And they try to make it look easy. So my name is David Morales. I'm a father to three, a husband. In my part time, I'm a triathlete. I love to race. And in what seems like a past life, 20 years ago, I had the honor of being one of the co-founders and the first president of the FCA. It's really nice listening to all the speakers here. And one of the things I heard regarding the, Peck had mentioned the oldest tradition of the FCA and being Turkey Bowl, but I'm going to have to beg to differ. I'm going to have to disagree. I think there's one more tradition that all of you might have been a part of it. You don't even realize. Your officers will know that it's a tradition, and you'll have been a part of it without even realizing that it's a tradition. But I want to actually demonstrate that here today. This is an icebreaker, if any of you have done those. So kind of preparing for tonight, I came up with two ideas for icebreakers. The officers know that it's not easy to do. So I came up with two icebreakers. The first one that I came up with, and I threw this idea out, but it was called the 200-person human knot. I threw that one out. I think we would have been done sometime in 2015. So the one that I'm going to do, you know a little bit about me now. So in 2 minutes, I want you guys to tell me a little bit about yourself. And an icebreaker is how I'm glad you asked. So the way icebreakers work, for those of you who don't know, it has to be really quick, it has to be really easy, but it has to be something amazing. So this icebreaker that we're going to end up doing tonight, I call it Celebrating 20 Years of the FCA. So it's really easy. All you have to do, everyone in the room, this is going to be mandatory. So all you have to do is think about the first year that you were active in the FCA. All right? So I'm going to start out with the first year, 1994. So if you were active in 1994, please stand up. Yeah, you have to stand up. So I want you guys to recognize who's in the FCA and when, because this is really for you guys, this is amazing. All right, 1995, you can also stand up, and Gerald remains standing, and everyone else. 1995, 1996, anyone from 1996, 1997, 1998, 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 10 years of the FCA, 2005, 2006, 2007. Yeah! Now we're getting somewhere. 2008. Yes, 2009. 2010. 2011. 2012. 2013. And finally, the freshman class. 2014. Please stand up. Give yourselves a round of applause. You're really a part of something special. So JC actually asked me to talk about two things: why the FCA was formed and how the FCA was formed. So to do that, I'm going to have to take you guys back with me 20 years. Okay? Think of a time before your smartphones. Now think of a time before cell phones. All right? So we're thinking pretty far back now.
Before the Johnson Center.
Just before the Johnson Center. Actually, we had, some people were lucky enough to have pagers. Yeah, what? So the way pager worked was, when you got paged, you would go to a payphone and you'd call someone back And you'd have to usually make a call quickly because that person who called you might have been calling from a payphone. So these kind of things don't exist anymore. So this is what life was like back in 1994, when basically we just had the quad. Walking around campus, what was life like back then? You walk around campus, you might see 2 or 3 Filipinos a day, maybe 4 Filipinos. How many of us were there? We really didn't know, because there was no Filipino club. So that's what life was like. If you were a Filipino, there was a void, there was a vacuum that was in place. So you know about the 7 founders, 7 or 8 founders. One of them dared to ask, why not us? He dared to ask, why not now? And with that, these 7 or 8 formed what would later become the FCA. And that's the why. So how did we do it? This part might even be more amazing. What I didn't mention to you was that there were other attempts to try to form an FCA after the previous Filipino Student Association had been dissolved. There was just no leadership, no succession plan. So how did we do it? Why were we successful where other groups had failed? Back in 1994, as we were going through the formation of the FCA, we didn't give too much thought about it. We just did whatever we needed to do. But now looking back 20 years, I can see that it was just amazing what we did because of how we did things. One of the things I do is I do swimming. I do a lot of swimming. And one of the best analogies I can give is, even if you're not in the best of shape, swimming is a very technical sport. If you have perfect form, you can basically outswim any fit athlete who's swimming poorly. I want you to think about that as the FCA, that we were basically so efficient in what we did. We weren't the best, we weren't the smartest, we didn't know the most people. Those were the groups that failed, the Filipino students that failed. Yet ours succeeded. And what did we do? We basically looked for the potential in others. So I want to walk you through those first few weeks of the FCA because this was actually pretty amazing. As you walk through history, you walk through Sub 1, you walk downstairs, you'll see those flyers there. These were the kind of things that we did to try to promote the FCA. At this point, we had 4 members. So in those early days of the FCA, even before our first meeting, you were allowed 2 flyers per building, and it had to be stamped student services. So we went through all the right channels. We spread things through word of mouth, because back then there was no group email, there was no network. We had much better forms of communication back then because if we wanted a message, we would see someone in person and let them know. One of the important things that I did, one of those first few weekends, there was a list of Filipino names that I had called. And this was before our first meeting. Try to imagine what it must have been like for me to pick up a phone, cold call, and say, hi, my name's David Morales. I'm the president of a new Filipino club. I know you're a Mason student. I'd like you to come on out. Remember, we had 4 members at this time. So this was something that I did for one entire weekend before we had a club, before we had our first meeting. So fast forward the next few anxious days to our first meeting. We were very optimistic, so we had set up 30 or 40 chairs. We were on the 2nd level of Sub 1. We were hoping for a big turnout. Yeah, the 4 of us, the 8 of us. When that first meeting happened in 1994, we had 51 people at the first meeting. By the end of the first semester, we had more meetings. We had 80 members in the FCA who had been to a meeting. And as they say, the rest is history. So this was basically the start of the FCA, and I'm glad you're here tonight to hear the story from me. So if I had a message for you guys, especially the freshman class, who see a very successful FCA, my message for you is never think that you've reached your peak, your potential. Because the next year's class is going to be looking to the things that you do when you're in charge. Thank you.